The stars trembled as the Vorthak fleet moved through space like a wave of death. Their ships were not made of metal or any material that most beings would recognize. Instead, they looked like giant crystals that sang with a terrible beauty. Each vessel hummed with power that could break planets in half and turn the minds of entire species into willing slaves. Admiral Kyung-min stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the long-range sensors with growing fear. The readings showed something that should not exist. A fleet of over 10,000 ships was moving toward human space. Each ship was larger than anything humans had ever built. The smallest Vorthak vessel was 3 times bigger than Earth's biggest battleship. "Sir, the outer colonies are reporting strange signals," said Jin'e from her position at the communication station. Her voice was steady, but Kyung-min could hear the worry underneath. "Colony 7 went silent 20 minutes ago. Before they stopped talking, they said their defense fleet was turning around and firing on their own cities." Sora looked up from her science station. Her hands moved quickly over the controls as she tried to make sense of the data flowing in. "Admiral, I am reading energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. The wavelengths appear to be some form of harmonic resonance, but the power levels are impossible. Whatever is creating these signals has technology that makes our best systems look like stone tools." Taeho turned from his weapons console. The big man's face was grim as he reported what his systems were telling him. "Sir, our long-range weapons are online and ready, but I have to be honest. Based on the size of those ships and the energy readings we are seeing, I doubt our missiles would even scratch their hulls. We need to contact Earth Command and request immediate reinforcements." Kyung-min nodded, but he already knew what Earth Command would tell them. The Defiance was the newest and most powerful ship in the human fleet. If they could not handle this threat, then no human ship could. The thought made his stomach feel like ice. On the main screen, the tactical display showed red dots moving steadily toward human space. Each dot represented a ship that could destroy a planet. The Vorthak fleet moved in perfect formation. Not a single vessel strayed from its assigned position. It was like watching a machine built from living crystal. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the lead ship," Jin'e announced. "The signal is not on any frequency we use, but somehow our computers are translating it." "Put it on screen," Kyung-min ordered. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge step back. The being on the screen was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished stone. Its eyes glowed with inner light, and when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am High Resonator Veltharion of the Vorthak Empire. For 10 million years we have brought order to the chaos of the universe. 17 galaxies now sing in perfect harmony under our guidance. Your species will join this song or be silenced forever. You have one rotation of your planet to surrender your fleets and prepare your worlds for integration. Resistance will only bring suffering." The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent. Everyone knew they had just heard their death sentence. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 17 entire galaxies. Humans had barely managed to colonize a few dozen star systems. Sora was the first to speak. "Sir, based on historical analysis of conquered species in our databases, I believe we are looking at beings that have never lost a battle. Every civilization they have encountered has fallen within days or weeks. Their harmonic technology appears to override the neural patterns of most species, allowing them to take control of enemy forces." Wu Jin's voice came over the comm system from the engineering deck. "Admiral, I have been monitoring the energy signatures from those ships. Whatever they are using as weapons seems to operate on frequencies that can pass through our shield systems, like they are not even there. Our defensive systems were not designed to handle this type of attack." Kyung-min walked to the center of the bridge and looked at each member of his crew. These were good people. They had families back on Earth. Children who would never grow up if the Vorthak could not be stopped. But how do you fight an enemy that has conquered galaxies? Jinny, contact Earth Command. Tell them we need every available ship sent to our position immediately. Also send all the data we have gathered about Vorthak technology to our science teams. Maybe they can find something we are missing." "Yes, sir," Jin'e replied. Her fingers moved over her console as she prepared the messages. Yoonji looked up from her tactical station where she had been studying the Vorthak fleet movements. "Admiral, I have been analyzing their formation and attack patterns based on what happened to our outer colonies. They seem to prefer psychological warfare over direct destruction. They take control of enemy forces and turn them against their own people. It creates panic and breaks the will to fight. Taeho shook his head. That makes them even more dangerous. An enemy that destroys you is bad enough, but an enemy that makes you destroy yourself is something else entirely. How do you fight against your own people when they are being controlled? The question hung in the air like a curse. Everyone on the bridge knew the answer. You could not fight your own people even if they were being controlled. It went against everything humans believed in. Sir, we are receiving reports from Colony 5, Ginny announced. Their defense fleet has opened fire on the colony ships. Over 3 million civilians are trapped with nowhere to run. Kyung-min closed his eyes. For a moment, 3 million people were dying and there was nothing he could do to save them. The Vorthak were too far away for the Defiance to reach them in time. Admiral Colony 5 has gone silent, Jin-A reported a few minutes later. Colony 3 is reporting the same pattern. Their defense fleet has turned against them. Sora pulled up star charts on her screen. Sir, at their current rate of advance, the Vorthak fleet will reach Earth in 72 hours. Based on what we have seen, they will encounter our main defense fleet in approximately 60 hours. Kyung-min did the math in his head. Earth's defense fleet consisted of 300 ships, including some of humanity's most advanced warships. Against any normal enemy, it would be a formidable force. Against an empire that had conquered galaxies, it would last maybe minutes. There has to be something, Wu Jin said over the comm, some weakness we can exploit. No species is completely invincible. Yoonji looked up from her analysis. Sir, I have been studying the way they move and attack. Their ships maintain perfect formation at all times. Their attack patterns follow precise mathematical principles. Everything they do seems to be based on order and harmony. What are you thinking? Kyung-min asked. I am not sure yet, sir, but maybe their strength is also their weakness. If they depend so heavily on order and harmony, then perhaps chaos and unpredictability might affect them differently than it would other species. Taeho laughed, but there was no humor in it. Chaos and unpredictability. Well, humans certainly have plenty of that. The question is whether we can turn it into a weapon before they turn our own fleets against us. The bridge fell silent again as everyone contemplated the impossible task ahead of them. Somewhere out there, an empire that had conquered galaxies was moving toward Earth. In 60 hours, humanity would discover if chaos could defeat order, or if the human race would join the billions of other species that sang in the Vorthak's terrible harmony. The Sol system had become a fortress, but everyone knew it would not be enough. Ships from every human colony had gathered around Earth in the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 300 warships hung in space like metal stars, but they felt as small as insects compared to what was coming. Admiral Kyung-min stood in the command center of the defense fleet aboard the massive station orbiting Earth. Through the great windows, he could see ships stretching out in all directions. Destroyers and cruisers and battleships all waiting for an enemy they could not hope to defeat. The thought made him sick. Sir, the alien allies are reporting in, Jin-A announced from her station. The Cathari had sent 50 ships. The peaceful Miran had contributed their entire defense fleet of 30 vessels. Even the warrior Grex had sent 200 of their best fighters. It should have been encouraging, but Kyung-min knew it would not matter. Wu Jin was working frantically at his engineering station, trying to modify human weapons systems. Admiral, I have been studying the energy patterns from the Vorthak attacks on our colonies. Their harmonic weapons seem to phase through standard shield configurations like they are not even there. I am trying to reconfigure our defensive grids to create interference patterns, but I am not sure it will work. Sora looked up from her science station where she had been analyzing every piece of data they had about Vorthak technology. Sir, I have been studying the reports from our destroyed colonies. The pattern is always the same. First, their ships emit a harmonic pulse that seems to scan the area. Then they broadcast some kind of control signal that overrides the neural patterns of the defending forces. Within minutes, entire fleets turn against their own people. Yoonji was hunched over her tactical display, studying simulations of possible battle scenarios. Admiral, I have run over 3,000 different attack patterns against the Vorthak fleet. Every single simulation ends the same way. They take control of our ships and use them against us. The more ships we have, the stronger they become. The irony was terrible. Humanity's greatest fleet would become humanity's destroyer. Every ship they had gathered to defend Earth would become a weapon pointed at their home world. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command, Jin A announced. Admiral Chen is on the line. Kyung-min activated his personal comm unit. Admiral Chen, what is the status of the civilian evacuation? We are doing everything we can, Kyung-min, but there are 8 billion people on Earth. Even if we had enough ships, which we do not, there is nowhere to take them that the Vorthak could not reach. The outer colonies are already gone, and the middle systems will fall within hours. Earth is making its last stand here. Kyung-min closed his eyes. 8 billion people depending on a fleet that could not win. Understood, sir? We will do everything possible to stop them. I know you will. Earth Command out. The communication ended and Kyung-min looked around the command center. Every person here knew they were about to die, but they remained at their posts. That was humanity for you. Stubborn to the end. Admiral, the Cathari fleet is reporting strange readings, Jin A announced. They say their ships are experiencing harmonic interference. Their navigation systems are fluctuating. Sora's hands flew over her controls. Sir, I am reading massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. The Vorthak fleet has arrived. On the main tactical display, red dots began to appear. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. The Vorthak fleet was even larger than they had estimated. Each ship pulsed with energy that made human technology look like toys. All ships, this is Admiral Kyung-min, he announced over the fleet-wide communication system. The enemy has arrived. Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves, but for every human who has ever lived and every human who might live in the future. Whatever happens today, we will face it together. The response came back from 300 ships at once. Understood, Admiral. Ready to engage. Yoonji looked up from her tactical station with fear in her eyes. Sir, the Cathari ships are breaking. Formation! They are turning toward the Miran fleet and powering weapons. What? Kyung-min spun to look at the tactical display. The Cathari ships that had come to help defend Earth were now pointing their guns at their allies. The Miran fleet is doing the same thing, Yoonji continued. They are targeting the Grex ships. Admiral, all of our alien allies are turning against each other. Sora's voice was quiet with horror. Sir, the Vorthak harmonic control signal has reached them. They are being forced to fight each other while the Vorthak fleet approaches. Kyung-min watched in sick fascination as ships that had come to defend Earth began firing on each other. Explosions lit up space as friends became enemies. Within minutes, half of their allied forces had been destroyed by the other half. Sir, the surviving alien ships are now turning toward us, Yoonji reported. They are being forced to attack the human fleet. All human ships prepare for defensive action, Kyung-min ordered. Target the alien vessels, but try to disable rather than destroy. They are not acting of their own will. The first alien ship to reach the human formation was a Cathari cruiser. Its weapons began firing on the human destroyer Courage. The human ship tried to return fire without causing fatal damage, but the alien ship seemed to feel no pain. It pressed its attack until both ships exploded in a ball of fire. Admiral, more of our allies are approaching, Taeho announced from his weapons station. I am reading 30 Grex fighters and 15 Miran cruisers. They are all targeting human ships. The battle that followed was horrible to watch. Human crews were forced to destroy ships that had come to help them. Every explosion meant the death of beings who had risked everything to stand with humanity against the Vorthak threat. Sir, I am detecting the main Vorthak fleet moving into attack position, Sora announced. They are maintaining formation at the edge of the system while their controlled forces engage us. Kyung-min understood the strategy. The Vorthak would let their controlled slaves weaken the human fleet before moving in for the final attack. It was efficient and cruel. Admiral, the UES Defiance is requesting permission to break formation and engage the enemy directly, Jin-A announced. Kyung-min looked at the tactical display. The Defiance was his old ship, his old crew. They wanted to die fighting rather than wait to be controlled and used as weapons against their own people. Permission granted, he said quietly. Tell them to give the Vorthak hell. On the display, he watched the Defiance break away from the main fleet and accelerate toward the Vorthak formation. The ship was beautiful and deadly as it flew through space. It represented everything humanity had learned about war and technology and courage. Sir, the Defiance is approaching the Vorthak fleet, Yoonji reported. They are powering all weapons and raising shields. Kyung-min held his breath as he watched his former ship rush toward an enemy that had conquered galaxies. It was suicide, but it was also the most human thing he had ever seen. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not surrender. They charged forward and made the enemy work for their victory. "Admiral, the Vorthak ships are targeting the Defiance," Sora announced. "I am reading massive energy buildup from their harmonic weapons. The first Vorthak blast should have destroyed the Defiance instantly. Their weapons had torn through every defense system known to galactic civilization. But something impossible happened. The blast hit the Defiance and simply stopped. The ship's shields flared with strange energy, but they held. The Defiance continued toward the Vorthak fleet as if nothing had happened. "What just happened?" Kyungmin demanded. Sora stared at her readings in confusion. "Sir, I do not understand the data I am seeing. The Vorthak harmonic weapon struck the Defiance directly, but the ship appears to be undamaged. More than that, the weapon seems to have had no effect at all." For the first time since the crisis began, Kyungmin felt something other than despair. Maybe hope was too strong a word, but at least now there was a question mark, instead of certain death. The UES Defiance flew through space toward the massive Vorthak command ship like a tiny bird attacking a mountain. Captain Dong-hyun gripped his flight controls and tried to keep his hands from shaking. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations, with the desperate energy of people who knew they were about to die. "Captain, the Vorthak flagship is targeting us with multiple weapon systems," announced Ha-yoon from her position at the medical station where she was monitoring the crew's vital signs. "I am reading massive energy buildup across their entire hull." Jun-ho looked up from his junior officer station where he was trying to coordinate defensive systems. His voice cracked with fear as he spoke. "Sir, maybe we should reconsider this attack. That ship is over 50 kilometers long. Our entire vessel could fit inside one of their weapon ports." Dong-hyun laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jun-ho, we came here to fight and that is what we are going to do. Besides, where would we run? The Vorthak control every ship in this system except ours." The first harmonic blast from the Vorthak flagship lit up space like a second sun. The energy beam was so powerful it should have vaporized the Defiance instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The blast struck the ship's experimental chaotic resonance shields and simply scattered like light through a prism. "What the hell just happened?" Dong-hyun demanded. Woo Jin's voice came over the comm from the engineering deck. "Captain, I am not sure, but our chaotic resonance generators seem to be interfering with their harmonic weapons. The energy is hitting our shields and breaking apart into random frequencies." Ha-yoon stared at her medical readouts in confusion. "Captain, I am detecting something strange in the crew's neural patterns. Our brain activity is creating interference with the Vorthak control signals. They cannot seem to establish a lock on our minds." The second Vorthak blast was even more powerful than the first. Multiple ships fired at once, creating a wave of harmonic energy that could have cracked a moon in half. But again, the impossible happened. The Defiance flew through the attack like it was nothing more than colored light. "This is not possible," came a transmission from the Vorthak flagship. High Resonator Veltharion's voice carried notes of confusion that had not been there before. "Your vessel should be destroyed. Your minds should be under our control. How are you resisting our harmonic dominion?" Dong-hyun opened a channel to respond. "Maybe you have been fighting the wrong kind of enemy for too long. Humans do not think like other species. We do not follow your patterns." Inside the ship, chaos was breaking out, but it was good chaos. Jun-ho was monitoring multiple systems at once while calling out readings in a voice that jumped between fear and excitement. His terror was actually helping to scramble the Vorthak targeting systems because his neural patterns were changing too quickly for them to track. Ha-yoon was discovering something amazing as she watched the crew's medical data. "Captain Human, consciousness appears to be naturally chaotic. Our thoughts do not follow harmonic patterns like other species. We think in contradictions and emotional jumps that their technology cannot predict or control." The Defiance was now close enough to the Vorthak flagship to see individual weapon ports along its crystalline hull. Each port was larger than most human ships, but somehow they all seemed less threatening now. The weapons that had conquered galaxies could not touch a single human vessel. "Captain, I am detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the Vorthak fleet," announced Jun-ho. "Their ships seem to be having trouble maintaining formation. It is like our presence is interfering with their coordination systems." Dong-hyun understood what was happening. The Vorthak Empire was built on perfect order and harmonic resonance. Every ship in their fleet was connected through crystal networks. that allowed them to function as a single organism, but human neural patterns were so chaotic they were creating interference in those networks. "All stations prepare for close-range attack," Dong-hyun ordered. "Let us see how well their perfect order handles some human improvisation." What followed was unlike any space battle in recorded history. The Defiance flew through the Vorthak formation using tactics that made no logical sense. Dong-hyun pulled turns that should have been impossible and flew attack patterns that seemed random but somehow worked perfectly. The Vorthak ships tried to respond, but their perfect coordination was breaking down. Ships that had moved in flawless formation for millions of years began to drift out of position. Their harmonic weapons fired at empty space because their targeting systems could not predict where the human ship would be next. "Captain, the Vorthak are trying to withdraw their flagship," Ha-eun announced. "I think we are actually making them retreat." But Dong-hyun was not finished. The rage of seeing human colonies destroyed and Earth threatened was burning in his chest. Like fire, he pushed the Defiance harder than any ship had ever been pushed before. "Engineering, give me everything you have," he ordered. "I want every weapon system we possess firing at that flagship." "Captain, we are at point-blank range," Woo Jin warned over the comm. "If we fire everything at once, the explosion could destroy us, too." "Then we better make sure it counts," Dong-hyun replied. The Defiance unleashed every weapon in its arsenal at the same moment. Missiles and energy beams and projectile rounds all struck the Vorthak flagship's hull simultaneously. But these were not ordinary weapons. They had been modified with chaotic resonance technology that turned each explosion into a symphony of random frequencies. The effect on the crystalline ship was devastating. Cracks appeared along its hull as the chaotic energy interfered with the harmonic bonds holding the vessel together. The ship that had led the conquest of galaxies began to come apart like a musical instrument being played too hard. "Captain, the flagship is breaking up," Junho announced with wonder in his voice. "Their entire hull structure is destabilizing." Through the viewports, they could see the massive Vorthak ship coming apart in sections. Each piece that broke away took with it some of the harmonic resonance that held the fleet together. Other Vorthak vessels began to drift as their coordination networks failed. "This is High Resonator Veltharion," came a transmission filled with static and interference. "What manner of beings are you? How do you create such chaos in the order of the universe?" Dong-hyun smiled as he opened a channel to reply. "We are humans, and chaos is what we do best. Your empire conquered galaxies because every other species thinks like you do. They follow patterns and logic and harmony. But humans are different. We are the random element in your perfect equation." Around them, the Vorthak fleet was falling apart. Ships that had maintained perfect formation for eons were colliding with each other as their coordination systems failed. The chaotic resonance from the Defiance was spreading through their harmonic networks like a virus infecting a computer. Ha-eun looked up from her medical station with amazement on her face. "Captain, I am reading something incredible. The human crew members are not just immune to Vorthak control. We are actually broadcasting interference that is disrupting their ability to control other species as well." Across the solar system, the alien ships that had been forced to fight against humanity suddenly stopped firing. The Cathari and Miran and Grex crews looked around in confusion as they regained control of their own minds. The Vorthak harmonic Dominion was breaking down. "Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Kyung-min," announced Junho. "The entire Vorthak fleet is retreating. They are pulling back to the edge of the system." Dong-hyun could hardly believe what he was hearing. For the first time in 10 million years, the Vorthak Empire had been stopped, not by superior weapons or ancient technology, but by the simple chaotic nature of human consciousness. "All stations, stand down from combat alert," he ordered. "But remain ready for anything. Something tells me this war is just beginning." Through the viewport, he watched the Vorthak ships limping away from Earth. Their perfect formations were broken and their harmonic weapons were useless against human chaos. But Dong-hyun knew they would not give up easily. An empire that had conquered galaxies would not be stopped by a single battle. Still, for the first time since this crisis began, he felt something that might have been hope. Humans had found their weapon against the Vorthak, and that weapon was themselves. The command center aboard the UES Defiance buzzed with activity as the crew tried to understand what had just happened. For the first time in galactic history, the Vorthak Empire had retreated from a battle. The implications were staggering and terrifying at the same time. Byung-ho sat hunched over his intelligence station, surrounded by screens displaying intercepted Vorthak communications. His specialized equipment had been designed to decode alien languages, but the Vorthak signals were unlike anything he had ever encountered. They seemed to be pure harmonic patterns, rather than traditional communication. "Captain, I am beginning to understand how their communication system works," he announced to Dong-hyun, who was standing nearby. "They do not use words like we do. Instead, they transmit emotional and conceptual states through harmonic frequencies. It is like they are sharing thoughts directly rather than describing them." Mi-young looked up from her xenopsychology workstation, where she had been analyzing the psychological profiles of captured Vorthak data. "Captain, that matches what I am seeing in their behavioral patterns. The Vorthak appear to be a hive mind, species that functions through perfect harmonic resonance. Every individual is connected to every other individual through crystalline neural networks." Sang-woo was deep in the ship's computer systems trying to analyze the Vorthak technology they had captured during the battle. "Captain, I have been studying the harmonic frequencies they use for everything from weapons to communication. The patterns are incredibly complex, but they all follow mathematical principles based on perfect order and predictability." Dong-hyun walked between the stations listening to his crew's discoveries. Each piece of information was like a puzzle piece that helped explain why humans had been able to do the impossible. "So you are saying that the Vorthak Empire is built on the idea that everything in the universe should follow harmonic patterns?" "Exactly, sir," Mi-young replied. "For 10 million years, they have conquered species after species by imposing their harmonic order on chaotic civilizations. They take the random neural patterns of other beings and force them into harmonic alignment. That is how they control entire populations." Byung-ho pulled up a display showing Vorthak fleet movements over the past few hours. "Captain, look at this. Even when they retreated, they did it in perfect mathematical formations. Every ship maintained exact spacing and timing. They literally cannot act in a random or unpredictable manner." The implications hit Dong-hyun like a physical blow. "That means their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They have conquered galaxies because every other species eventually falls into predictable patterns. But humans are the exception," Sang-woo finished. "Captain, I have been analyzing human neural patterns compared to other galactic species. Every known civilization develops logical thought processes based on efficiency and order. But human consciousness evolved through millions of years of chaos and conflict. We think in contradictions and emotional leaps that follow no mathematical pattern." Mi-young brought up brain scan data from the human crew. "Look at this, sir. Even when we are trying to be logical, our thoughts jump around in ways that would seem insane to other species. We can hold contradictory ideas in our minds at the same time. We make decisions based on intuition rather than pure logic. To a species like the Vorthak, we must seem like walking chaos generators." Byung-ho was translating more intercepted communications. "Captain, the Vorthak are calling us the unstable ones in their transmissions. They seem genuinely terrified of our unpredictability. Listen to this message I just decoded. It says that human neural patterns create harmonic interference that spreads through their network connections like a virus." Dong-hyun began to pace as the full scope of what they had discovered became clear. "So, when they try to scan our minds to establish control, their harmonic systems encounter chaos instead of order, and that chaos spreads through their networks, disrupting their coordination." "It gets better than that, sir," Sang-woo announced. "I have been analyzing the effect our presence had on their fleet coordination. Human neural patterns do not just resist their control. We actually broadcast interference that breaks down their ability to control other species as well." Mi-young nodded excitedly. "That explains why the alien ships regained control of themselves during the battle. Our chaotic neural patterns were jamming the Vorthak control signals." The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. Humans were not just immune to Vorthak control, they were like a vaccine against it. Wherever humans went, the Vorthak would lose their ability to dominate other species. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command," announced the communications officer. "Admiral Kyung-min wants a full report on our discoveries." Dong-hyun activated the communication system. Admiral, we have learned something incredible about why we were able to resist the Vorthak. It turns out that human consciousness is naturally chaotic in ways that interfere with their harmonic control systems. Explain, came Kyungmin's voice over the comm. Sir, the Vorthak Empire is built on perfect order and harmonic resonance. They control other species by forcing their neural patterns into harmonic alignment. But human thoughts are so chaotic and unpredictable that their systems cannot establish a lock on our minds. More than that, our neural patterns actually broadcast interference that breaks down their control over other species. There was a long pause before Kyungmin responded. Are you telling me that the thing that makes humans seem crazy to other species is actually our secret weapon against an empire that has conquered galaxies? That appears to be exactly what I am telling you, sir, Dong-hyun replied. Byung-ho looked up from his station with new intelligence data. Captain, I am intercepting Vorthak communications about something they call the Harmony Protocol. It appears to be their plan to deal with species that resist harmonic control. They are discussing the possibility of destroying entire star systems, rather than risk the spread of what they call neural chaos. The mood in the command center shifted from excitement to fear. The Vorthak might not be able to control humans, but they still had the power to destroy entire worlds. Mi Young was studying psychological profiles of the Vorthak leadership. Captain, I think I understand their dilemma. For 10 million years, they have believed that their way of thinking represents universal order. The idea that chaos could be more powerful than harmony challenges everything they believe about the nature of reality. Sang-woo brought up tactical displays showing Vorthak fleet positions. Captain, they are regrouping at the edge of the system, but their formations are different now. Instead of the perfect geometric patterns they used before, they are maintaining much looser formations. I think they are trying to adapt to the interference we create. Dong-hyun studied the tactical data. The Vorthak were learning. That made them even more dangerous. What happens when an empire that has never lost a battle suddenly encounters an enemy it cannot understand or control? Based on their psychological profiles, I would say they have two options, Mi Young replied. They can try to adapt their tactics to deal with human chaos, or they can decide that chaos itself is such a threat to universal order that it must be completely destroyed. Byung-ho intercepted another communication burst. Captain, the Vorthak are referring to humans as the Great Disruption in their latest transmissions. They seem to view us as a threat not just to their empire, but to their entire understanding of how the universe should work. The command center fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications. Humans had not just found a way to resist the Vorthak. They had discovered that human nature itself was antithetical to everything the Vorthak Empire represented. Captain, orders from Earth Command, announced the communications officer. We are to maintain position and continue monitoring Vorthak communications while the fleet prepares for their next move. Dong-hyun nodded, but his mind was already working on the larger problem. How do you fight an enemy that has the power to destroy galaxies when your only weapon is the chaos of human consciousness? The answer would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of every species in the universe that valued freedom over perfect order. The final battle began not with the thunder of weapons, but with the strangest military order ever given in human history. Admiral Kyungmin stood before the assembled fleet commanders and spoke words that would have been considered insanity just days before. Attention all ship captains. You are hereby ordered to abandon all logical tactical procedures. Throw out your training manuals. Ignore standard formations. I want every ship in this fleet to act as unpredictably as possible. Be chaotic. Be random. Be human. Young-soo looked up from his communications station aboard the command ship with confusion on his face. Admiral, are you sure about this? Every military doctrine we have is based on coordination and logical strategy. That is exactly why it will not work against the Vorthak, Kyungmin replied. They have spent 10 million years fighting enemies who think logically. We are going to give them something they have never encountered before, pure human chaos. Across the human fleet, captains were receiving the strangest battle instructions of their careers. They were told to ignore formation flying, to use random targeting patterns, to broadcast conflicting signals on all frequencies, to do everything that military training had taught them never to do. Hyojin sat at her weapons console aboard the destroyer Courage, trying to understand her orders. Captain, you want me to target the enemy ships randomly. What if I waste ammunition on targets that are not strategically important? Then waste it, Captain Nam replied. The Vorthak expect us to target their command ships and weapon systems. First, instead we are going to shoot at whatever catches our fancy. Maybe their sensor arrays, maybe their engine sections, maybe nothing at all. The Vorthak fleet had regrouped at the edge of the solar system. High Resonator Veltharion stood in his crystal command chamber, trying to understand how beings of such chaos could function as a military force. His harmonic analysis systems could not predict human behavior patterns because humans themselves did not know what they were going to do next. Battle Coordinator Zethmiran analyzed the human fleet formations, he commanded. High Resonator, there are no formations, came the confused reply. The human ships appear to be positioned randomly throughout their defensive zone. Their movement patterns follow no mathematical principles that our systems can recognize, Veltharion felt something that he had not experienced in eons. Uncertainty. Begin the final assault. All ships advance to optimal firing positions. Target their largest vessels first and work systematically through their fleet. But as the Vorthak ships moved into attack formation, something impossible happened. The human fleet did not respond the way every other species had for 10 million years. Instead of forming defensive lines or attempting coordinated counterattacks, the human ships scattered in all directions like leaves in a hurricane. Minho was piloting the frigate Dancing Star through a series of maneuvers that would have gotten him court-martialed under normal circumstances. He flew in spirals and loops and sudden direction changes that seemed to follow no pattern except his own momentary whims. Navigator, what is your current heading? Asked his captain. I have no idea, sir, Minho replied cheerfully. I'm just flying toward whatever looks interesting. Right now, that appears to be the pretty crystalline ship with all the glowing weapon ports. The Vorthak targeting systems had been designed to predict enemy movements based on logical tactical analysis. When faced with a human pilot who was making decisions based on what looked interesting, their computers began to overheat trying to calculate probability matrices for actions that had no logical basis. Young Su was coordinating the Chaos Protocol from the command ship. His job was to make sure that human communications were as confusing as possible to enemy monitoring systems. All ships begin random chatter on all frequencies. Talk about anything except what you are actually doing. The communication channels, filled with human voices discussing everything from dinner recipes to childhood memories while ships engaged in deadly combat. The Vorthak communication analysts tried desperately to decode the tactical significance of a conversation about someone's grandmother's cooking while missiles exploded around them. Battle Coordinator Zethmiran report on human tactical patterns, Veltharion demanded. High Resonator. I cannot identify any patterns. Their ships move without coordination. Their weapons target our vessels seemingly at random. Their communications contain no tactical information at all. They appear to be discussing food preparation techniques while engaging in mortal combat. For the first time in his ancient existence, Veltharion felt the emotion that lesser species called fear. How do you defeat an enemy that follows no rules? How do you predict the actions of beings who do not think in logical sequences? Hai Jin was having the time of her life aboard the Courage. Instead of carefully aimed shots at critical systems, she was firing at whatever part of the enemy ships caught her attention. Captain, I just destroyed what looks like a sculpture on the side of that Vorthak cruiser. It was very pretty, so I thought it might be important. Excellent work, Hye Jin, her captain replied. Keep shooting at pretty things. The effect on the Vorthak fleet was devastating, but not in any way that made logical sense. The random human attacks were hitting systems that no tactical manual would have considered priority targets. Art installations that turned out to be harmonic resonance amplifiers. Decorative crystals that were actually coordination network nodes. The Vorthak had never considered that an enemy might target beautiful objects instead of functional ones. High Resonator. Our harmonic coordination network is experiencing cascade failures, reported Battle Coordinator Zethmiran. The humans are destroying components that we did not realize were critical to fleet operations. Veltharion tried to process this information through his harmonic logic systems, but the data made no sense. How can they target critical systems if they do not understand our technology? High Resonator. I do not believe they are targeting critical systems. I believe they are shooting at whatever appeals to them aesthetically. It is purely coincidental that many of our most beautiful architectural elements also serve important, functional purposes. The irony would have been amusing if it were not so terrifying. The Vorthak had spent millions of years creating ships that were both functional and beautiful according to principles of harmonic perfection. Now that very perfection was being used against them by enemies who had no idea what they were destroying. Young Su received a communication from one of the human corvettes. Command, this is Captain Park aboard the Swift Arrow. We have discovered something interesting. When we play loud music on external speakers, the Vorthak ships seem to lose coordination. I recommend all ships begin broadcasting human music at maximum volume. Within minutes, the space around Earth was filled with everything from classical symphonies to heavy metal rock. The chaotic variety of human musical expression created harmonic interference patterns that the Vorthak coordination systems could not filter out. High Resonator. Our ships are losing harmonic alignment, Zethmaran reported, with something approaching panic in his crystalline voice. The humans are broadcasting acoustic chaos that is disrupting our neural networks. Veltharion made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours before. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance. We must regroup and develop new tactical approaches. But as the Vorthak fleet began to withdraw, something even more unexpected happened. Human ships began pursuing them in ways that violated every principle of space combat. Instead of maintaining formation, the human vessels chased individual Vorthak ships like children playing tag. Minho was still piloting the Dancing Star in patterns that defied explanation. Captain, there is a really interesting-looking Vorthak ship trying to escape. Can we follow it? It has these amazing spiral patterns on its hull that I want to get a closer look at. Go for it, Minho, his captain replied. Remember to shoot at whatever looks prettiest. Across the battlefield, human ships were breaking away from the main engagement to pursue individual targets that had caught their attention for reasons that had nothing to do with military strategy. The result was that the Vorthak could not execute an orderly retreat because random human ships kept appearing from unexpected directions to attack them. High Resonator. We cannot maintain retreat formation, Zethmaran reported. Human vessels are approaching our ships from random vectors and engaging in close-range combat. They do not appear to be following any retreat protocols themselves. Veltharion realized that he was facing something that challenged everything the Vorthak Empire had learned about warfare over 10 million years. The humans were not just chaotic. They were joyfully chaotic. They seemed to be enjoying the battle rather than treating it as a grim necessity. All ships prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace, he commanded. We must withdraw and report this situation to the High Council. But even the retreat was complicated by human unpredictability. Several human ships began following the Vorthak vessels as they prepared to jump, attempting to see where they were going. The interference from human neural patterns was making it difficult for the Vorthak navigation systems to establish stable hyperspace coordinates. Young Su watched from the command ship as the mighty Vorthak fleet that had conquered galaxies limped away from Earth in disorder.